And welcome back to the Ops Show, where we bring you the trials and tribulations, the automations and collaborations from the world of DevOps and the greater developer experience. I'm your host, Tristan Pollock, and in our best show yet, we have Jessica Kerr, aka Jessitron.
Every show the best show yet.
I'm sorry?
Every show the best show yet.
Yes, you got it. And the first person to actually question that line, and I can't actually take full credit for it. I stole it from the Robin Hood Snacks guys who do their show, and they always say that, and I was like, I loved it, so I'm like, we're going to use that too.
That's called progress. When you take an idea from one place and use it in a new context, that's how the world keeps going.
Yes, I love that. So I didn't even get to give your full, you do so many things. I didn't even get to give your full introduction, but a couple of the highlights are, you're deep into DevOps, you're the Greater Than Code podcast host, and also you organize Arrested DevOps. So, tell us sometimes you're a very multifaceted person, and you have, you get involved in in the developer world in a lot of ways. Give us a little bit of that, kind of intro to like your code story. Like, how did you get into this world? And, what are some of the, the milestones and things that you went through on your way to where you are today?
Okay. I got very lucky to get into programming. When I was in college in the late 90s, I was studying physics, but my aunt had a friend who worked at Federal Express and got me an internship in their operations research group doing programming. So I had 2 summers of writing code there, and I mean, it was not hard, and it was a lot of fun, and I got to go home at 5:30, and there was no homework. It was great. And then I graduated in 99, which was a lucky year because people were hiring developers like crazy in 99, much more so than a year later. So I got a good job doing C and Unix, and I really feel fortunate to enter professional development when I did, because starting with a command line, I mean, we had Windows, but we logged into our Linux terminal for everything. No, Unix, it was probably Unix. And I started in C, which is a really useful language for learning some of the underlying stuff. And then when I switched to Java 4 years later or something, I had advantages over people who started in Java because I understood pointers. And back in the day, we worked with SQL. We had an Oracle database, and so I got really familiar with that. And this is all stuff that developers these days need all of this, but they don't get to build up to it gradually. Developers now.
You just got to dive right in.
Yeah, and you need to know JavaScript and HTML and CSS and Java and SQL and other databases and Linux and Mac and Windows Mobile. That wasn't a thing when I started. And there's like so much. I mean, even someone who's been doing it 20 years, I don't know half of it, but I feel like I got lucky to spend years coding at a time when coding was, let's face it, simpler.
Yeah. It's there's never been more services, microservices, languages, and you're probably an expert at a few, but that's a lot of extra information that, you're right. There's a extremely high bar now to be a developer.
Yeah. And you can't be great at all of it. We just have to be good at learning what we need as we need it, and then going a little deeper than we absolutely have to regularly to start to develop depth in the important stuff.
So along those lines, like, how do you keep up with it? Like, we always like to talk about workflows in this realm, but like, how do you stay up on like the latest technology, decide how to make the technology decisions, things like that? How do you weed through the noise?
but but I do. I mean, I do follow Twitter. Now I don't like follow Twitter religiously, but I look at it entirely too much, and I try to follow a lot of people, like thousands of people, so that I randomly see across my stream some things that are going on. Like I did learn that AWS was down last Thursday or
Oh
Friday,
yeah.
whatever it was. That was
Very
exciting.
wild. Very wild. Yeah. My partner works for Amazon, and she was like, well, yeah, it was like, orders for Thanksgiving, like I think on like a lot of Whole Foods orders or something, like there wasn't like a connection that like could let these things, actually get ordered, which is like crazy, right?
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, yeah. And conferences, I used to go to a lot of conferences,
Hmm.
like about 12 a year
Oh
for
wow.
7 years. Yeah, it was a
And
lot.
when you say used to,
Yeah.
is it as if you toned it down in like a post-COVID world, or
The last conference was March 7th and 8th of this
okay.
year. And I mean, yeah, some of them are going virtual, um, but I find very few of those worthwhile. There's one, Philly ETE, uh, that I'll plug later because I'm on the organizing committee now. Um, that I think they're exceptional because they have a really solid base of attendees who actually talk to each other in Slack.
Okay.
But the other virtual conferences that I've spoken at, I'm like, no, I just didn't go to
Not
any of it. Not the
not
same.
feeling the vibe, and it's yeah. So are you kind of like, when you look at those conferences, in-person conferences, you go a bit for the relationships and like being able to like meet people
More
and
than a bit. The point of speaking. The point of speaking is to develop those relationships and to talk to the attendees, the people attending the conference, some, but even more the other speakers, because then you see them repeatedly, and uh, it's a conversation or many conversations, and that conversation is like about what's going on in tech widely and in
Mhm.
software and what's coming up and what's new, and being a part of that conversation, going to their talks and talking to them afterward, and along with whoever's in the hallway. So that the people at the conference are also important, but man, it's all about those relationships and being in that. And that was a great way to keep up. Um,
And so
but
now you're not
now,
seeing the virtual conference isn't able to facilitate those sorts of connections in the
yeah.
same way. Have you seen anything close?
Um, Deserted Island DevOps was good.
Oh yeah. That's so
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because I thought that was such a
I
cool
didn't
concept.
speak. Some of my friends did. Um, but I actually watched some of it. I mean, it was adorable. It was an Animal Crossing, but here's the key that made that conference different. It was single track and one day. So they had all the speakers in a Zoom, also in Animal Crossing, their little avatars.
Mm.
But the speakers all sat there in the Zoom all day and went to each other's talks. And that made the series of talks into a conversation. So
Mm.
they were like referring to each other, and you felt like you were participating in the
More of like a
thoughts of
meetup
DevOps moving
or
forward.
okay. Yeah. And for everyone that
Yeah,
doesn't
so
know
that
Animal
one,
Crossing, how do you explain Animal Crossing?
oh god, it was the perfect game to come out in March of this year.
Oh, so it literally
Um,
just came out in March.
yeah, it came out in March,
Oh, I
and
didn't
that
realize it
conference
was
was
so new.
in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this version, there's Animal Crossings across the years, but this
Okay.
Animal Crossing's New Horizons, I think it is, came out in March for the Switch, and I played it daily for a long time, which I'm not much of a video game person, but you just like walk around on your island and you talk to your neighbors and you plant flowers, and it's like so chill and low stress and
Huh.
everything's happy. Sometimes it rains. That's kind of a bummer, but um I mean,
So it's usually
like the
compared to kind of like it's like kind of like a mellowed out Sims or something?
Oh yeah. Very, very mellow. Extremely cute. Worst thing that happens is you get stung by wasps. It's like thank you for this pandemic.
And then how did they organize? Like I remember seeing the talks were in like a classroom kind of. They just everyone logged into
Yeah.
the game and then went there and then they broadcast on Twitch.
Yeah, you can go to other people's islands
Oh, okay.
if you like enter their friend code. So yeah, one person on their island built a big room and set it up like a little conference room with the screen, and then I forget the name of who did it, but they did a great job with the AV and like combining the screencast from Animal Crossing with the little avatars walking around, and then it like zooms out. You can see the Zoom screen share, or whatever it was, with the slides. It was adorable. Just
Yeah.
really well done.
Yeah, I remember that was I think that's the only conference I've gotten like this is so cool, like such a unique concept, and they executed really well. And it was like, yeah, people would move up
They
to like
streamed it on
the
Twitch, so
podium.
it's really easy to watch.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a great. I'm glad you
podium was
brought that
cute.
up. It was that was
Right.
I was quite yeah, I was quite excited after that. And then they were doing another one, or they did like a shorter version recently.
Oh, did they?
I thought
I'm not sure I
maybe,
saw it.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
They had
that's a
chat in Discord, which is definitely the new place to have chat.
yeah.
Um,
Are you
yeah.
enjoying, let's say like, we use a lot of Slack, and our communities in Slack, and you just joined, and um, you know, there is like this there's definitely some gaps, right, for like running a community and being able to make it easy, and
Mm.
to just hang out and enjoy it. And a lot of people do have Slack overload, especially if they use it for work. So yeah, what do you have some
Yeah.
thoughts on Discord, being that new medium, or does it fulfill that
Discord,
kind of
I
community
struggled to
need?
sign up to. The onboarding is not as easy.
Mm-hmm.
And while kids find it intuitive, I asked my kids if I have trouble with Discord, how to do something. Although I helped them the other day too. They were like, Discord is really spazzing out on me. And I was like, push Control R. It looks like an Electron app. And that worked. And they're like, Mom, you're such a hacker.
I love that.
They didn't really say that, but I thought it.
Yeah, yeah. Still, yeah, still wanting up the kids a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But Discord, you can jump right into screen share. You can pop into a voice channel. It's really low friction to go from text to voice to video. Multiple people can screen share at the same time. Yeah, it's not the super high quality, but it's like, yeah, it's free. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It works, and yeah, allows for like that kind of breadth of communication depending on
Also
what
not
people
being bought by
prefer.
Salesforce yet.
Yeah, that's actually something we've talked a lot about. It's obviously we're big Slack fans, and Slack's an investor in CTO.ai, but we're also we had a lot of hopes and dreams for Heroku, and I think 10 years later, it's kind of stagnated a bit since being acquired.
Heroku was so important. I mean, it like kicked the rest of the platform industry into gear. But sometimes like the important instigator, which Slack is. Slack has instigated, no, you will have actual nice chat with apps on everything that's easy to use and
Mm-hmm.
has apps and
Well designed, and
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I still use Heroku.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do.
And how do you feel like kind of over the past, I don't know, 10 years is a lot to remember, but how do you feel about the evolution of like post their Salesforce acquisition?
Oh, I haven't really noticed, but I'm only
Yeah.
using it for personal.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to give them $7 a month for my
Okay.
toy app.
Okay. Yeah. So it's cheap, works, super easy. It's still very easy to use.
Yeah, it does not hurt my feelings to give Heroku a couple dollars a month.
Mhm.
I think they've been so good for software industry in general.
Okay. Yeah. Do they still have their free tier that they had, or
Um,
I feel like at some
yes,
point they
I
did,
think, although
but
I
you're over it.
$7, and I'm like, that is totally fine. If they want $25
Yeah.
a month for my app that doesn't do anything yet, it might be too much.
Yeah. What are you building? Do you care to share?
Oh, well, hypothetically, now building is a strong word, but my partner Avdi Grimm and I are we want to like have an app to exercise our software development principles on, but also it's called Catch Up to Me, and what we want it to do is like randomly hook up calendar invites between like us and all the people we'd love to get together with but hate calendaring, and can we just agree on like or let people sign up to agree on Tuesday evenings. Sometimes some of us will get together um, and let the app do the matching of who are you going to talk to this Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So
So it's kind of,
because I so many people.
yeah. Yeah, that's I feel that. I think a lot of people are in the same boat around the world.
Right? Yeah.
It's been a wild year. Hopefully we're turning the page here, Jan 1, somewhat. But it seems
Don't
like
get your
things are
hopes
going
up,
in that
man.
direction.
It's going to be slow. It's going to be really slow. But I'm excited that the vaccines sound like they're a new technology, and it's promising. It's very promising. But it'll
Yeah,
still be halfway through next year.
till there's enough vaccines to go out to everyone.
Yeah, for there to be enough vaccines to make a difference
Mm-hmm.
in how we can behave in public.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there he is. Adjust your expectations, change into who you need to be for these new
Mhm.
circumstances, and then see what new opportunities come up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great philosophy, and I feel like that kind of brings me to your podcast and some of the topics that you talk about on it. Where you kind of go more into this empathetic, emotional side of development. What tell us a little bit about the podcast and some of your
Sure.
favorite
So,
episodes.
Greater Than Code is it's totally a podcast by software developers for software developers, mostly about things more important than software. That's
Human
that's the
connection.
thesis. Yeah, that's one of them. Systems. There's themes of inclusion and connection and systems thinking. There's a panel of, I don't know, there might be a dozen of us by now, of hosts. So
Oh, I see. So
some
you kind of
three of us
rotate
show
through.
up every week.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And
nice.
any of us can invite guests, and then it just there's continuity, but also a lot of difference. Um, and it's always a conversation. We don't like plan or outline anything. Um, let's see, a new favorite episode just the other day. Um, oh, it was a Beba Barhani, and she is from Ethiopia. She lives in Ireland, and she's working on her PhD, and she's studying the confluence between AI and power structures and uh, like diversity, and so it's very both social and technical, and what are the consequences for the world that automation has, and especially like ML, machine learning, and AI algorithms, and how do these things combine, and what do they say about each other,
Mm,
and neuroscience, and it's super interesting.
mm, Interesting.
Another one is with Eugenia Chang. She's a mathematician. I think that was, nope, I'm going to get the number wrong if I try to pretend I know it. And she talked about a lot of the stuff that's now in her new book, X plus Y.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of neuro. We talked to Wesley Faulkner recently, or actually kind of at the beginning of when we started this show in summer. So we're a COVID show. When supplementing any.
We're stuck. Let's make a podcast.
And he was talking a lot about neurodiversity and just like the builders in the room and how that. And I'm guessing that's kind of what you're saying with the woman from Ireland, living in Ireland. Is that what she was kind of going down? Where there's a lot of these
cognitive science. More like the cognitive science and how does our brain work and how do we work as a society, and then how does that interplay with how artificial intelligence works.
Wow,
she's super interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go listen to that right after this, and we'll drop some links into the description here so that everyone can find it easy. So tell us about your big thing, Arrested DevOps. I'm curious.
DevOps is another podcast that I'm one of the hosts of.
Okay. And the name, I was going to ask about the name too.
Oh, it's totally a pun on Arrested Development.
Okay.
That podcast has been around for many years.
No wonder it felt so familiar. I was like,
we usually end each episode, at least these days, with and remember, there's always DevOps in the banana stand.
Okay, and I saw that. Yeah, I saw that, and that comes from the
Arrested
show.
Development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And similar format to the other podcast, or
yeah, we always talk to whoever we want to talk to. It's pretty informal.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big informality fan.
It shows. It works.
Yeah. I know you also, you're kind of a vocabulary entrepreneur, and let me see if I can get the word right.
But my strategy, take vocabulary that someone else made up and bring it into new contexts.
Okay. And how do you do that?
Well, so in particular, there's the word mathemacy. It was coined by Nora Bateson, who's an anthropologist.
Okay.
And she made up this word out of the Latin sim together, mathesy, learning, for a learning system made of learning parts. So like an ecosystem, which is constantly growing and evolving, all the species are changing, or a market where all the companies and the consumers and everything are changing their behavior and learning from each other and getting better at stuff and doing different things all the time. And like a software team or any team really, as opposed to a mechanical system that while it may be complicated, it holds still and eventually if you could figure it out. So Symmathecist emphasizes the learning parts of the system. Both the parts are learning and the whole system is always changing. It doesn't hold still long enough for you to get your whole head around it. Of course, we never get our whole head around any system that involves people that are heads. It includes our heads. But anyway, so Nora Bateson coined that term, and bring it over to a software context because I think our software teams are Symmathecist in a unique kind of way because it's not just that people learn. Obviously, we learn and we learn from each other, but the software, and I'm counting the running software here, running in production, it's also learning. It's not a machine that holds still. It's learning because we change it, for one thing, and the platforms that it's running on change, and the world around it changes. But at the very least, we're constantly teaching it, and we learn from it because it throws errors and changes data and hopefully emits events. And then we can look at Honeycomb and see what's going on. And so all our tooling is also part of the Symmathecist, because we don't learn anything from the software without tooling, and we can't teach it anything without tooling either. There's this barrier. The resilience engineering community, Woods and Cook, call it the line of representation between the social and digital spaces. And software development teams span that. There's people in the social part, and there's running software in the technical part, and all of that is participating and learning together. So then I think that makes me, as a developer, a Symmathecist, when my focus is on learning more and teaching the software. So that's a word. It's kind of a long, difficult word, but I like it much better because I didn't make it up.
Yeah. Have you made up any words? I feel like there's a strong possibility.
Oh, it seems fairly likely, but I'm not sure it was intentional.
That's usually how all words. That's the same for me.
Yeah, at least Symmathecist was intentionally created, but it's created by someone else, which makes me happy, because I do really think that if you want to make a difference in the world, most of us can do that better, not by building a movement, but by joining one.
I like that. You mentioned Honeycomb, and I know you had like some fun stuff that you wanted to share. Do you want to dive into some of your favorite dev tools and things you use to keep you sane and that you get excited about?
Sure. I don't have Honeycomb up. I do use Honeycomb for our app. It was one of the first things created with and catch up to me. Step 1, Google Auth. Step 2, Honeycomb. I was like, I need to know that this app is up and running in production, and whether anyone clicked on it. Okay, whether we clicked on it. But yeah, when you asked about development processes and tools, and in the last year and change, specifically since the last time my computer was stolen and I had to replace it, I've moved to development almost entirely in Docker.
Okay. We're big Docker fans.
And cool. Yeah, containers in production get a lot of attention. And yes, certainly use containers in production. They're great. But the early pushes for Docker was that your development environment can be like production. You can run the same containers. Yeah, I don't do that. I mean, if you're just testing, okay, do that. But I think development in Docker is a completely different use case than in production. So for instance, the other day, I want to learn about Angular, say. Let's just get a new one of these. Say I'm new to Angular, and I just want to try it out. Because I am pretty new to Angular, and the other day I wanted to try it out. So I click on get started, and I'm like, set up your local environment. But I have a principle now. It's like, first thing to do is npm install -g. No, I'm not going to do that on my computer. I don't want a bunch of old versions of whatever the heck language and framework and CLI from whenever the heck I downloaded it, and it hasn't been updated, and it's probably insecure by now. I don't install things on my computer. I'll just run it in a Docker container. So I'm like, okay, well, for Angular, I need Node. So I'll just do a Docker run -it for do things right. And then I can bring in a local directory mount. Okay, this is a pain. I wish this was easier, but at least it's explicit. I need a bind map of the mount of the current directory, PWD just. Let's see. Current directory, targets, give it a name. I happen to know I need to open a port. And then I'll be like, okay, I just want a new node container and I'm gonna run bash in it. And that's kind of a lot to type, but then I have a computer within my computer and I can do whatever. And here I'm happy to type npm install -g Angular CLI and let that happen, which may not be fast because my internet is not great. Yeah, let's just pretend that completed. And then I'm able to type Angular new whatever, and that didn't actually complete. And this goes and installs all its npm packages and whatnot. And I can do stuff in there and play around. And then, since I did put that stuff locally, I did that same command earlier and let it download all the things. You have stuff in there? You do have stuff in there. I've got the files, but not any of that stuff installed on my computer. I mentioned that I use Heroku earlier, and in our other project, we can look at Heroku logs and stuff with the Heroku command line, which is not installed on my computer. It's only in the Docker container for that app. So all of these installs are scoped to a project. Now, to be fair, if I was working on one project for work all day long, I would have that stuff installed natively. But when I'm working on something occasionally or somebody else's stuff, or if I ever want anybody else to be able to work with me without I'm paying you for your full-time job to work on this, so you won't mind installing it on this computer that we bought you, that's different. Big fan of Docker for scoping that stuff. And then the other thing that I always do these days, whenever I clone a project, I open it in VS Code. And then the first thing I do is Command-Shift-P, add development container configuration files. So here I have VS Code installed and the remote, there's remote container extensions. And the beauty of this is VS Code figures out what kind of container I should run this in. Why, yes, actually, Node and TypeScript is perfect. Yeah, whatever. And then VS Code generates a couple files. What? Are you angry? Oh, it hates me. It's interesting. Okay, it failed. Whatever. It failed at making the file. I don't know what that's about. But I'm going to follow the first rule of demos, and when it fails, stop.
Okay.
I'll just tell you what usually happens there. I don't know what I did there.
Yeah, no worries.
But I am running, this is WSL in Windows. So I have Docker running within WSL, which is Windows subsystem for Linux, right?
Okay.
And within Windows. So Ubuntu is in the Windows App Store now. Also, Kali Linux, that's handy. It's in the freaking App Store. It's so easy to install. Yeah, 7 years ago, I switched to Macs for development, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. And now I'm on Windows, and I'm like, okay, this is better now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, not going back anytime soon. Not before Mac makes a touchscreen anyway.
Okay. Yeah, what was the mix there? Why Windows now after the experience on both sides?
Bash prompt is native now. I mean, I've got Ubuntu just meshing incredibly well. Okay, apparently today it had a problem. The file systems are not trivial here because that directory was created by Docker. I wonder if that did something weird. And then I went into it in VS Code. But I mean, it's layers, but you've got Windows for interacting with your printers and browsing the web and stuff. And then you've got Linux. Oh, I think my friend Deech called it's like Linux, but the sound works. Right there, like a real Linux VM that like magically integrates. When I type code dot in Linux, code opens on Windows. And here's the thing. When I let code get as far, VS Code get as far as making its Docker container, like it runs a VS Code process in the Docker container and a separate one on Windows, and they talk to each other. And one of these is in charge of the files, and the other one is in charge of interacting with you. And I love this because my laptop and like my themes and Vim extension or whatever I want to personalize the interactions with my computer for are separate from the things that are personal to the project, like linters and the TypeScript language extension, or the Angular has its own language extension, I think, in VS Code. And so that's project specific, and that's living in that Docker container with the project. And then I have my piece locally on Windows. And then multiple people can connect to that server on the Docker container, that VS Code server. And we can both type in the same files, and it actually works. Yeah, most of the time.
Cool. So it makes it collaborative as well.
Yeah, it's both a really useful separation of concerns for me personally, and then that makes it collaborative smoothly.
I love that. Well,
so
thank you for sharing.
Obsession with developer tooling.
I love a good obsession. We're just getting up on time here. I want to be respectful of yours. Do you have any shout outs and where can we find you best online?
Cool. Yeah, I already gave a shout out for Philly ETE, which their website will be up by like December 14th, I think, for 2021. I think the conference is a whopping $89 this year. And oh my gosh, we're going to have a great lineup of speakers. I don't know if I can officially say who's keynoting, but it was my suggestion. And I was like, this is a super long shot. They're going to say no. And they said yes. And I am so excited.
Oh, wow. We can't get a little
I can
teaser?
Also give a shout out to.
Can we get a rhymes with?
I've got a workshop. Yeah. Okay. It rhymes with I can't say. Like literally.
Really? Literally?
Yeah, literally.
Too perfect.
Yeah. Oh, and I was going to say, I have a workshop coming up in January. We only have like 4 tickets left, last I looked. But I'm doing a workshop called Invitation to Systems Thinking. It's me and Kent Beck. And I do think that like, while conferences don't work as well with being virtual, workshops do. Workshops, when you've got everybody with their camera on and enough time for everyone to talk and interact with each other, I think that's where we need to go instead of presentations at conferences.
Yeah, more interactive and smaller groups. And do you have a limited size for a workshop? Do you think that works?
This time we're only having 16 people.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite small. But it's like real learning and discussion, not just absorption.
Yeah. Hands-on, so you can really take some things away from it.
Yep.
And obviously, Jessitron on Twitter. Any other?
Jessitron.com.
And Jessitron.com.
Oh, and if you're interested in our workshop, I forgot to say, systemsthinking.dev.
Oh, good. I like that domain.
I'm very happy with that URL.
Yeah, me too. Well, I'll drop all that stuff in the description. Thank you so much for coming on, Jessica. Really appreciate your time and your obsessions. Thank you.